First, we have a budget hearing for the Water Capital Improvement Fund, 546-0530. This was a sheet that we were missing on Wednesday. Everybody should have a copy of it. I see that we have I guess the lines in there that are that show that there's different columns, and it makes it a little bit easier to read. So all we need to do is work on getting the see if we can get the healthcare stuff on there. Do you have any update on that, Keith, of what they said about that? Because I see you got the lines in here.
That's temporary because we just transferred it over to an Excel doc to do one page at a time, which we can do one department, but for the whole budget, that's a little bit.
Oh, this isn't from the thing, this is from a different
Right.
doc system?
You see, you'd have grids for this.
Well, the grids look good. So do you think or don't think we'll be able to get the grids on all of them?
He's doing that.
Oh, is he? And what about the healthcare stuff? Do you think you'll be able to do that?
They're looking at that too.
All right. But this is the one that we talked about, and all the numbers are the same for each year from the original plan to the request based upon the Water Capital Fund. And I don't know if anybody has any questions with the debt service numbers in there or whatever. Anybody have any questions on that?
Nope.
There's a big drop in 27, which I want to address just so you know. There's two debt issues that we're paying in this fund. One of them started life as a 2001 issue for the water line to Avon. We refinanced it in 2010, at which point it was $5.2 million. That is about $460,000 a year. The final payment is in 26. And then the other issue is a 2013 refinancing of a 2010 issue. That one's a little complicated. It started as life as those Build America bonds. And then when the feds quit reimbursing the portion of that, we had a clause that we could refinance. So we refinanced that in 2013. At that point, it was 1.1 million. That one runs through 2031, so it's still on, but it's a lot smaller, so it's only about 75, 80,000 a year. That's relevant to this fund because this fund brings in about 690,000 a year. And the Water Capital Fund, if you look at your water bill, you have your water usage billing, and then there's a line on there, Water Capital. That goes to this fund. For all residential accounts, it's the same. For the commercial accounts, it goes up by larger meters, so the bigger, the accounts with bigger meters that can use more volume pay a little bit more. It's a pretty consistent revenue source, but ever since we built the line to Avon, so 20-some years, this fund has been tied up in debt service, almost all of it. And so the 2027 not being all tied up in debt service is kind of big news because it's been that way for 25, at that point it will have been that way for over 25 years. And then we'll still have $690,000, $700,000 a year in revenue in this fund, but the debt service will only be about $80,000. So we're going to have around $600,000 a year in this fund available to use for water capital projects, which we haven't had since we built the line because we've had all this debt to pay off.
Well, the other question we got to be, I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but at some point, there's going to have to be upgrades or large-scale capital improvements to the line, Avon. I mean, that's a 4-foot. I think there's a 4-foot pipe.
Pat would be I don't see him, but.
3.5.
Oh, yeah.
3.5 foot?
42-inch diameter.
Yeah, so at some point it has to be maintained or something's gonna have to be upgraded on it. I mean, I don't know, but at some point it can't last forever.
It can, but they do maintain it. I mean, we get reports every year when we go to these meetings. It's not like it's sitting idle.
I mean, all the way to Medina County, have there been a ton of issues with it yet, or are we still?
Not really on ours. There's an ETL1, which is the one the county originally did back in the early 90s. That one's got some issues, but ours so far is not bad.
Oh, good. All right, any other questions?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, I call the Finance Committee meeting to order. First thing we have is assignment for request for council action. 2297 Walmart Community Grant Fire Department. 2298 2022 SPCA contribution. 2299 increased Finance Department petty cash from 125 to 250. 22100 MCDAC grant application Police Department. 22101 real estate purchase agreement Airport. 22102 increased expenditure for firestorm gear for the Police Department. 22103 budget amendments. 22104 Memorial Pool Cabana rental rates. 22105 easement and right of entry contract West Smith Reconstruction. 22-106 Wheeling and Lake Erie Waterline Crossing Agreement, West Smith. 22-107 Wheeling and Lake Erie Letter Agreement, West Smith. 22-108 bids for Ray Miller parking lot expansion and dog park. 22-109 amend codified ordinances, section 941, garbage. First thing we have is 2297, which is Walmart Community Grant for the Fire Department. Chief?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, the local Walmart got in touch with our Captain Ingersoll at the station and advised them that they'd like to present the fire department with an award. At the time, we didn't know how much it was. It could have been as much as $5,000. They are doing it through their community grant program. We had not applied for a grant, but they did want to present something to us. So on the 15th, they gave us a presentation check for $1,500, but it is through their grant program, and we're requesting permission to apply/accept that.
So it's the $1,500, okay, so it's not the 5,000?
It's not.
Oh, okay, well, that's still good.
Yep.
Any questions?
To approve with the emergency clause?
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2022-098, 2022 SPCA contribution. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is the annual request from the SPCA. They've been doing a very good job, I would think, in helping us take care of animals. They've worked with the kitten, what's it called?
Medina Meow Fix.
Thank you, Meow Fix. I knew it was that. Thank you, brain cramp. With them in helping us with helping Carrie and her group with the feral cats and doing the TNR program with them. This request here is for a 2% increase, like our general budget increases are from over last year. I do believe with the work that they've done for the city and helping control the animals and making sure that animals go from bad homes to good homes, it's well worth the money. It saves us from having to have our own employee doing this type of work.
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Hazeltine.
Will this affect any of the future funding for Medina Meow Fix if we do the 2% as far as council is concerned? Because we had passed that as a pilot program, so they will be coming back to us for funding. So I don't want to give to one pot by denying the other pot. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess the question I would have for them is that was the pilot program to trap, neuter, and release. I guess at some point, the cost should be going down because most of the cats should have been trapped, neutered, and released. I mean, there's going to still be more, but it shouldn't be as large of a number. So it should go down over time, I would imagine.
Well, over time, it's only been like 6 months.
I think what we talked about in the beginning is usually it's about 2 years. It takes about 2 years for the numbers, and then they decline, fairly significantly, about 2 years.
Okay.
I would suggest on that comment or question that we wait until they make the request and we
Okay.
decide on the facts that we have at the moment.
Okay. I just didn't want to vote for this if it was going to be taking away from potential funding for the pilot program.
I think the number on this one is 10,200. I think we started out at 2,500 for many years, and then Paul got involved that had to be about 8 years ago?
Roughly.
Has it been
Yeah.
that long? And, now I guess we're at a number with all the different types of animals. I mean, I think this covers, various types of animals, dogs, cats. I think sometimes we had an alligator one time, I think, or something.
We had ferrets.
Ferrets.
Rats.
We had a lot of rats. We
Yeah,
had a lot of
300 rats
Yeah.
from one home.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, I guess the slight increase is fine. I don't personally don't have a problem with that. The service is ongoing and, I know that their actual headquarters is no longer in the city. It's outside the city, but of course, there's always still some city animals involved.
Fair enough.
Correct. And
Thank you.
Any other
Mr. Coyne?
questions? Commissioner Land?
No, that's me.
Oh, Mayor?
The only other thing I'd like to say is since Paul's gotten involved, we get a detailed list every year of what they did the year before. So we can cross-check it, just like I do with the LST runs, to make sure they are actually city addresses and not Medina mailing address, but not city addresses. And these numbers that they're attesting to are well documented, and they've done a good job with that.
Good. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Move to approve. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2299, increase finance department petty cash from $125 to $250. Mr. Durham.
You know, I know it's a 100% increase, but we haven't increased this the entire time I've been here, so this is basically just an inflationary issue. We pay for certain costs out of this, meals for budget meetings, but there's other things that we have to pay cash for, and the 125 is getting to where it's not really enough to get between check writes anymore, so we want a little more so we don't have to write a special check in between.
Any questions?
Move to approve. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22100, MCDAC grant application for the police. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the McDAC grant request. We're requesting permission to submit the grant and accept the award of the grant. This funds our 3 school resource officers. The grant is in the amount of $273,830.04.
Good. Any questions?
Move to approve. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22101, real estate purchase agreement for the airport. Mr. Huber was working on this, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'd respectfully ask council to consider passing this subject to the law director's approval. I know on the RCA, it said the agreement has been reviewed and approved by the law director, but I have had some conversations with them, as has Mr. Coyne, and there are a few things regarding outstanding taxes as well as assessments that we don't feel the city should be responsible, and Mr. Huber had not had a chance to get into that much detail. He's off ill tonight, by the way. Otherwise, he'd be here to talk about it. So he was okay with the consideration of council passing it with his approval, and it won't come before council until we get those details worked out. This is the land for the public's benefit. This is the land immediately to the east of the existing airport, and it's our hope to expand the airport and be refunded by the FAA, which would then permit a much more viable airport because of the length of the runway. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. President?
Mr. Rose?
The taxes and such that you refer, Mayor, it's in item number 5 of the agreement and others?
Yes, the CAUV equipment.
Okay, all right. Where's my question? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Move to approve subject to the final review of the law director. Second.
Any further discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22102, increased expenditure firestorm gear for the police department. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. President. This increase in the PO is so that we can upgrade our patrol rifles. They're quite old, 12-plus years old, so we're incrementally upgrading those over this next year and a half. Thank you.
Any questions?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 22103, budget amendments. We have 15 is the first one, 2215. Keith?
Sorry, there's 3 items in here. The first is a transfer in the fire department. Second is for the CHIP grant, and the third is for the land for the airport that you just voted on.
Any questions?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 2217. This is for the Parks Department.
Is this a pass-through we need to appropriate? You're accepting the checks and appropriating?
Questions?
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 22104, amend ordinance 5617, Memorial Pool Cabana Rentals. Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This request is to change the way we do our cabana rentals at the outdoor pool. For your benefit, for those who don't know, we have 2 shade structures at the outdoor pool. One is available all the time for the public to use. The other one is reservable. And we're proposing to change the structure to align with how we do rentals at the rec center, where you pay one fee and it gets you admission for 25 guests and reservation of the cabana. Originally, we were following the pavilion rates with this and having 3-hour time blocks. And we're trying to get away from the time blocks so that as we ramp up programming, swim lessons, so on and so forth, we can plan accordingly to the reservations and reserve the area ahead of time for when the parties arrive. They'll arrive as one large group, and it won't put additional work on our single attendant who works at the pool. So we're hoping by doing this change, we can get it online along with our membership passes. So when someone calls, generally they call the Parks Department when they see the outdoor pool. So our clerk can then help them look at the schedule, see all the, what the plans are with the lifeguards. If, we have an event, it's blocked out on the shared calendar, and we can book it and provide better customer service. So the big change, when you see the number, it's a group rate. It's $4 for up to 25 people, and then you're essentially paying, I think it's $50 for the cabana itself. And the emergency clause is not requested.
Oh, great. Any questions?
I like that.
Is that going to work okay, though? Because June is coming.
I think we'll be okay because it'll be approved by the 1st of May, and we just have 2 weeks until the pool's going to open on Memorial Day, so it'll give us time to get adjusted. We can take bookings beyond the effective date of the ordinance, so we can make it work.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 22-105, easement and contract for right-of-way West Smith reconstruction. Patrick?
Thank you. This is the final of, I think, 16 different easements and right-of-way we had to purchase for this West Smith project. I wanted to point out, you might remember at our last Finance Committee meeting, Council authorized us an appropriation measure for this property. We wanted to do that to get it in place because we've got a deadline coming up. Now that the property owner has signed, we'll no longer have any need for that appropriation.
Any other questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 22-106, Wheeling and Lake Erie Water Line Crossing Agreement, West Smith. Patrick?
Thank you. As you probably know, our project on West Smith does cross the railroad. We have 2 agreements with them tonight. This one allows us to install a new water line underneath their tracks.
Has this been reviewed by the law director?
Oh, I should point that, he has them both, this one and the following one. I didn't speak to him today to see if he had any concerns, so maybe we do want to pass it subject to his approval.
Any questions?
Move to approve, subject to final approval of the law director.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 22-107, Wheeling and Lake Erie Letter Agreement, West Smith. Patrick?
Thank you. This one, there's no cost involved. It just basically spells out what we are going to be doing in their right-of-way, which is this property on both sides of the track. We'll be entering it to remove and replace pavement, grading, that sort of thing.
Okay, any questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Rose?
Thank you. The work that's being done, is it dictated by the railroad or by you and ODOT?
No, this is our design.
Okay.
This just authorizing us to do that. And should point out, there is one more agreement to come with Wheeling. In order for us to install the sidewalk on the north side of Smith, they have to extend their grade crossing, those panels. And we're working on that, but we'll be coming back to you with a agreement to allow them to do that. And of course, we'll have to pay for it.
Thank you.
Move to approve with, subject to the final approval of the law director.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 22-108, bids for Ray Mellard parking lot expansion in a dog park. Yay! Patrick and Jansen, both of you, I guess.
Well, maybe I'll start, and Jansen's going to jump in here with some good news. This is the project, and we're going to bid it as one project, but it's really two individual. One is the expansion of the parking lot on Huntington. Basically, we're going to be almost doubling the capacity of it by extending it to the north, where the property was, that house that was moved. That's part one. Part two is the installation of this dog park. The dog park consists of three large fenced-in areas, a concrete node and entryway to each of those areas, and appropriate landscaping. Turn it over to Jansen because we found out late last week, we got a revised estimate from the architect, and the cost for the dog park was significantly more than we had thought, so we're going to need to review some more funding.
All right, thanks. In addition to what Pat had mentioned, we did not budget for landscape screening for the parking lot expansion that would be required as part of our planning and zoning code. So we hired Environmental Design Group as a consultant on the project to help us with landscape requirements, the dog park fence design layout, as well as some plant and species recommendations. The project budget was originally $212,000 as identified there on the request. The new number that we have, like Pat mentioned, is substantially higher. It's $266,025, which is an increase of, well, to take a step back, we had discussed using general purpose capital in the amount of $75,000 and Ward 3 open space, Ward 1 open space, there's a typo there. And that balance is $33,151.21. So we have a difference of $53,993.59. What we're going to try to do between now and when this project gets bid, there's some things that we can cut and trim up that we don't have numbers on yet, as far as altering the fence design to save some cost. We did reach out to Environmental Design Group on Friday for a revised landscaping plan to reduce the cost of the landscape material. So we do anticipate that number coming down, but with this project and the way we're seeing cost increases, I don't think it would be appropriate to trim the budget down at this point. So we do have a gap that we need to talk about before we can move forward. We do have a sense of urgency with this. Like Pat had mentioned, we have to be under contract by June 30th to remain eligible for the grant.
Did you say there was 1 or 3 dog parks?
There's 3 areas. There's 2 large dog areas and a small dog area to keep the size of the breed separate. And the reason why there's 2 large dog areas is so that we can give one rest, reseed it, and get it brought back up to par so that we can then open it, which we don't have the ability to do right now at Memorial Park.
And how much does it cost per dog area?
The cost per linear foot of the fence, I believe, is $80. Before this meeting, I did reach out to a reputable fence contractor who we've used for a lot of projects at the city, who said that for what is spec'd in the design, that is appropriate, but there are some changes that we could make to bring that number down. And we still have to, get a hold of our consultant and make those changes to the plans in order to bring it down. But I'm confident that we can trim it up.
Well, I guess I just had a question of how do you know the usage of those dog parks? I mean, I guess we didn't really know in Ward 2 when we did that one. And I mean, I think that's used a lot, but how do you know we have 1 there, now we're having 3 over in this area? Do we have that many dogs? Do we know that that's going to be used more? I mean, what's your projections?
Well, to keep in mind, the intent of this project was to build it, open it, and then close the Memorial Dog Park, because it has been a maintenance challenge for our staff for as long as I've been here. And the user experience is not very good. There's a lot of people that, quite frankly, don't take their dogs anymore to that location because of its condition. There is a dog park on the east side of town at Carolyn Muggeridge Park that the county built a few years ago, gets a ton of use. I think there's a large need for a dog park, especially a improved dog park in the city. There's a lot of, the senior living complexes. There's a lot of people in apartments that rely on those to take their dogs out and get them exercised because they don't have fenced yards at their own property. So there is a value to it. And I drive by Memorial pretty regularly, and there's always people there. Rain, snow, you name it.
Yep, I agree.
And the other thing to keep in mind, there were a lot of donations that made that dog park at Memorial happen many years ago. So it's an unfortunate situation that we're in, especially with a short timeline. But the numbers are what they are. And like I said, I know that we can trim it down. It's just, I don't think we want to do that now while we're trying to establish a project
So you
budget.
asking us to approve it at 212 or 266,000 tonight? Because you're going to bid it out. What
266.
And where's the other 50-some thousand coming from?
That's what we have to talk about.
Questions?
Listen, I think you're right about you and I have talked about the park by Memorial. I think I quit taking my dog there a dog ago. Like, that dog's dead, and I've got another dog. Because that park was either muddy or it was always in bad shape. And I know that the attempt to improve it, from the grass to stones, that never worked. The county park, the county park is busy almost all the time, hugely popular with folks. And probably the smartest part of the plan is to incorporate the ability to close one section so that it can rejuvenate one area when it gets worn out. But I know a lot of people have asked me since this came up, the issue of building a new dog park, and are excited about having a park within the city limits that's closer to get to, that's accessible and that's well maintained, right? Well planned and well maintained. So I think it's important. I think it's an important that we have one, and that we have one that's planned this way, and that it's well worth the money, because, as you mentioned, a lot of people don't have any place to walk their dogs other than down a sidewalk, if you don't have a yard, if you're living in an apartment or condominium.
Yep.
And I've heard from a lot of folks that are excited about this, and generally those same people are currently using the county, the new county dog park, and appreciate the way that park is set up. Because if you have a medium-sized dog, a big dog, or if you have a really tiny dog, they can't be together. And the only question I guess I have with regard to it is there water? Is there a water line going in this park?
There's currently running water there and restrooms, which was an important. It's important for the location because it's vastly improved. We don't have restrooms year round, but there is a place. It's a public restroom.
I mean, is there water for the dogs?
The dogs.
So,
Like a,
yeah, there will be, there's drinking fountains on the side of the building, but our consultant actually suggested that we don't have dog drinking bowls because of the chance for diseases and the like to get spread by having those there. But there will be running water. We could probably put in a bottle filling station. As you walk from the parking lot to the dog park, you walk right past it.
okay. Yeah, great. That makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions?
Well, it's not a question, it's actually a comment. As we discussed before when this was in its infancy, when you were talking about it a year or two ago, another benefit, not only for the dogs and the dog users, it will free up parking at Memorial Park. And it's not uncommon, any time of the day, to have 4 or 5, up to 10 cars there with people that drove there for their dog use. And with the time with Jump Park being there, the golf frisbee, the baseball field being across the street, and Memorial Pool, the extra parking space and the land that will be restored and be used for the community use. I think well worth the money being spent. We just have to figure out where it's coming from.
Mrs. Hazeltine?
Thank you, Mr. President. My comments basically echo what everyone else has said. I do see a tremendous benefit in putting this here. We've had a lot of conversations lately about kids not having any place to go or things to do. And once this project is complete, and part of it is the dog park, once this whole Ray Mallard thing is done, it's going to be a place to go, and people are going to use it. I actually randomly came across someone from Lodi who said that they use the Mugridge Dog Park. So people drive from out of town to find a dog park, so it will be used. We will build it, and they will come.
You know, I guess so a question to you, Jansen, is how does your carry forward look?
I'm just gonna say, I've given you all I have in Ward 1.
Yeah, so we do have carry forward, obviously, from a lot of projects that we put on the back burner due to COVID. Additionally, we also have we have to rebuild our storage barn. That project will be coming sometime soon because we lost our storage barn in the fire on Smith Road. And I was planning on using carry forward to purchase site amenities for the dog park, benches. We don't have that in the budget. Different, pipes and things for the dogs to run and play in. So I could give some towards it.
Well, what about because we got to balance the capital fund because we're going to keep taking from it. What if we split that 53,000, 50/50, 50 from carry forward, 50 from the 301 account? That way it's about $26,000 each.
So if we do these cost-saving measures and reduce the number down, just asking, will I be able to reduce that contribution then?
So you mean we'll keep it at 26 for the general purpose capital and your side only comes down?
No, equally.
Oh, okay, I'm okay with that. Is everybody okay with that?
Well, out of fairness, I'm sorry, Jim.
No, go
Out of
ahead.
fairness, if it doesn't come down, it's closer to 27,000 because it's almost $54,000.
Okay.
53,990 and some change. So I just want to make sure we're talking about the right numbers. But our hope and prayer is that we can get it down to a more reasonable number. And I think the 50/50 split is a fair compromise.
I was just going to add, if it's benches and things like that you're going to use for your carry forward, maybe we could talk to one of the foundations about, they might be very favorable for some of those things that you wouldn't have to take out of carry forward then. The mayor and I would be glad to bring that forth.
Well, in fact, the new Thomas and Joe Lincoln Foundation that I serve on, the family had an affinity for animals.
Okay.
And we're offering to support canines for police departments. But I think something like this, a dog park, and probably even to have their name recognized for a significant contribution. I think we could help with that.
So that would be 3 different foundations now that we could look at.
Mr. Lamb?
So what if we got the part that we're taking from your carry forward, what if we got that money donated? Then the city would still put in, we would put in the 27 and we could get the 27 that you're putting in from carry forward donated. Does that work?
Well, I guess the question is, how much, we don't know how much the cost of benches will be and stuff. Is that included in that? Because I think that's.
No, not the benches, but just the cost as it is. You're projecting it right now.
Let's do this. Let's take the 26,000 out of my carry forward. I'm confident that we'll be able to get donors. A lot of people are looking for unique things to donate to. It wasn't very hard to get money donated for the dog park at Memorial. I'm fairly confident we can make that funding up and make it work.
Whereas the mayor said it's closer to 27. But anyways, anybody else have any questions? So the motion will be to split it'll be 266, what's the exact number, 266 what?
266 and $25.
$25. And then with the difference of 212 or whatever that number is, split 50/50, I don't have that number.
Just call it 54. You'll be close.
54,000.
Okay, so I'll make a motion with the emergency clause.
I just had one more.
I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear. So if you are able to raise the $27,000, it doesn't have to come out of his carry forward. That is not a condition of us putting in our 27 from the capital. Okay. Just wanted to double check.
But hopefully both numbers will go down because of the cost savings.
Yes.
We get it down now.
So we don't care how he gets it. whether it's out of his carry forward or whether it's out of whatever.
Well, he hopes he-
We're
he-
still
Yeah,
committed.
he hopes he lowers our side too. That's what
Yes,
we're hoping to.
yes. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to approve this with the emergency clause with an increase of 54,000, of which that 54,000 is to be split between the capital fund and the carry forward fund of Jansen's rec department.
Any further questions with the emergency clause? I think, did you say the emergency clause?
Yeah, I did say
Okay,
it was
sorry.
emergency.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're at 22-109, amend chapter 941 garbage. Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we've been talking about this ordinance and possibly changing it. John Leneker and I, superintendent, for quite a few years. We were hopeful maybe that we were going to change the way we're doing business, so we weren't sure. We were talking about going a certain way with the county, and maybe the funds were going to come down, or at least the tip fees. They've not. They seem like they're going in the other direction, so I think it's time that we clean up some of these items. We talked a little bit about it at budget time last week. So we have these considerations for you to look at, and we discuss and go forward.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you want to proceed, if you
Well,
want to go
give
page by
us the
page.
changes and stuff. I mean, I had a couple additional changes than you had, as you know.
Yes, sir.
So you could just go through what your concerns were and why you needed to change the red lines and how that.
Sure. So back in the day, they were using bigger trucks. The sanitation department, 32 cubic yard trucks. Now we're at 25 cubic yards. So the hopper area is 4 yard container versus the 2.7. Looking forward, the private hauler, we were charging $200 for a fee for them to register, and we're asking to change that to $300. There's a lot of time that goes in. There's rate sheets that the private hauler needs to send in. We want to know who's in the city picking up garbage. There's a lot of times that we have to go and move containers and handle business on commercial properties, even though there's a private hauler involved. So back to the 25 cubic yard containers, or the trucks that we have now, the actual panels are 7.5 cubic yards compacted. And that's the reason for the flat rate change from like 135 to 165 to 270 to 330. It's more reflective of what the costs are today with the panels that we have in the trucks, and that's adjusting and measuring for invoicing purposes. If you look at different areas in this ordinance, specifically 94106, there's a reference to $16. That's what we're charging monthly for residential pickup for a single dwelling. In the ordinance, for whatever reason, the written portion is 14 and the numeric is 16. So those need to be, they need to coincide and be matching. Going forward, the Norton Environmental was referenced in here for years since the CPF opened. That was in 1993. Well, they're no longer in contract with the county, so Rumpke has a 10-year contract with 2 5-year options. So if you look at the 6th page, which is section B, we have Rumpke listed, we have the Strongsville transfer station, we are taking anaerobic organic waste to the Liverpool wastewater treatment plant, and that's the digester. We've hauled material to Country View Auto Recycling, Congress Lake Farms, which is in Mogador. That's the portion that they use for, I think, cattle feed and do a mixing of material there, of organic waste, and then Kurtz Brothers in North Canton. So those are represented in the ordinance where we're taking specific loads, and that would come at the request of the customer. And so what John did is he figured out the miles, the minutes of transport, and adjusted those costs accordingly to be more reflective of what we're doing. The section B, that's the temporary container rental fee, we've not provided this service, and that's on page 7, in 8 to 9 years. So that's why that entire area is striked out. It's in yellow. We don't even provide this service anymore. Monthly rental fees for rear load and front load containers, typically, well, right now we're at $8. The request is to go to $10. We have 150 rear load containers out and 430 front load containers. The longevity of containers is about 10 years, so we took the cost of replacements about $1,200, and that's why we're asking to go from $8 to $10, which is a nominal increase with retrospect, and then $6 to $10 on the front load. Talks a little bit about yard waste. We do take grass clippings. The ordinance says we do not pick up yard waste. We pick it up on the same day, as you know, the regular trash schedule, not the immediate day following, so that more coincides with how we're conducting business. That's pretty much the parts that we want to change. I know, John, you had some additions or maybe deletions. You want to go from the beginning?
No, I just wanted a few clarifications, like your definition of properly prepared rubbish, it's number 7, and garbage, it means all that is contained within a closed lid or an approved sanitation container, and all additional rubbish and or garbage around the container is subject to an additional charge. And I guess we talked about, I mean, we have unlimited garbage pickup, maybe it should be all additional non-properly prepared rubbish or garbage has an additional charge, because I think as long as it's either wrapped properly that we have in our code, like carpeting and things like that, it'll be picked up and there'll be no additional charge to pick that up, because I think that's what we've done historically.
And I agree with that. In the spirit of the ordinance, the lids were twofold: to keep sanitary, keep clean, right, so rubbish wouldn't blow all around in the neighborhoods. And the other part was to keep the water out, because if it rained, it would infiltrate and make the weight heavier. So that was the reason for the lids. But to be honest, most people don't even have lids. They don't even know where their lids are.
Yeah, some people don't purchase them either, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's where we're at, but that's a good suggestion to do.
So, I mean, that would be like the first one, that's number 7, and then when you go down a little further in the section 94102, it says that no person shall throw or deposit garbage upon any public or private property within the corporate limits of the city. Now, garbage, the definition of garbage in this ordinance is organic waste, so that would mean nobody can do composting in the city, not allowed. So I think we gotta qualify that to say, except for composting, for the purpose of composting, nobody should do that. But, because I think this was done in 1989, I think things have come along where people compost now, and that shouldn't be illegal to compost in the city of Medina. So that would be a change that I would recommend. And I think nobody really does incineration that I saw, and I just a couple things like that, just to bring it up to date of what really happens on a day-to-day basis, get rid of some of the stuff that doesn't really apply.
Agreed. If I may, under subsection H, then it talks about corporate limits or deposit garbage on any landfill. We don't have landfills, so I guess we should strike that. I don't think that we're going to ever have a landfill again. I would hope
Right, I
not.
think
I
the
don't
last
it's legally.
landfill, we had a landfill, used to have a landfill, I
Correct.
guess, it was at the park.
Reagan Park,
Um,
dump road.
But you're probably correct. So you're right, that doesn't happen. I mean, those are just a couple things that I saw when I read through it, just to make sure that, we allow certain things that we want to have happen. We still have unlimited garbage pickup. It's not going to be prohibited. No additional charge will be given unless they do not follow the prepackaging rules. And, I think we got to keep that. The only thing I thought was silly in here is you have weight limits on things, and nobody really knows how much things weigh, as we talked about. So I don't know what that really means, because it's really in the discretion of something. How do you know it's 35 pounds? How do you know, I'm sure there's a lot of things that aren't 35 pounds that are thrown into the back of the hoppers, but that's just something that we have specific weight limits, and I think maybe it should be more, an unreasonable weight or something. I don't know if it's better or worse. Mr. Huber can chime into that, because then nobody's going to be weighing this garbage.
I mean, we talked about that. That's exactly right. So you're looking at 35 pounds. So you have to have some baseline. We look at 40-gallon container, and the ordinance says 35 pounds. And every day, there's more than 35 pounds.
Right.
But then again, there's the excessive, and that's why it's a discretion call in the
It
field.
should be a discretionary call a person.
It is.
Because it's going to be whether it's excessive, that's whether they can move it, right? 'Cause
Correct.
I think you mentioned there was one garbage can filled with,
200
frozen
pounds.
meat, right, 200 pounds of meat, and you can't move that.
and we tagged it, and we asked the resident to spread it, split it up in reasonable containers, and the guys went back and got it. But
So the only thing I would think is change the language, instead of having a specific weight limit, have it discretionary as far as, unreasonable weight limit, and we could check with Huber on this, because I know he doesn't like anything vague, he likes things solid, but who's gonna be weighing it to begin with? I don't think anybody. And I think the question is gonna be whether or not the sanitation workers can handle the garbage, and they'll know best, because they pick it up every day.
yes.
So, I don't know what people think about that.
I don't have a problem with the weight limit, because I think you have to have some kind of weight limit so that if it's, so that if it is excessive, then you can come back and do what you just talked about, is work it out with the resident or whatever you have to do, so that you can say, well, this is over the weight limit. The way the program runs, I mean, I can't imagine anybody in town ever has, a justifiable issue with it, because everything seems to get picked up. I mean, it is one absolutely incredible department. I mean, I watch them in the morning sometimes go by and pick stuff up, and it's like, I don't even know how they do it so fast. They do it, they dump it, they go,
Good.
and they're gone. But the excessive weight thing, I think, is more than reasonable, because you can fill a trash can. I know my own. I'm not very strong, I guess, but they're, sometimes I have to drag them out to the curb. I don't know. You're right. I don't know what they weigh. I don't know if it's 35 pounds or maybe 36. I'm not sure. but I think it is wherever you would set the weight, that you'd say, okay, this is going to be excessive. And then generally it'll get dumped anyway, but then there is that person that decides to put, 10 concrete blocks in or something, and you deal with it.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. And if I may, they have these totes with the wheels, the big wheels, and so what's happening is they can load them at their garage or their house, and it will exceed. That's why we kind of determine a 40-gallon container and a 35 weight. But in that instance, there's a 96-gallon tote could be filled with concrete and bricks, and they're able to wheel it because it's almost like a dolly.
Yeah.
But the guy lifting it is the one who is stressing.
Sure.
And I also look at it from the standpoint of the employee, okay, with the wear and tear on the body, and then from the city standpoint, the workers' comp.
Yeah, workers' comp.
Out from that too. So I think this is, putting some reasonable number on there. My rule is if I can pick it up a foot, it's 50 pounds or less. Okay, if I can't pick it up that high.
That's pretty generous, Paul.
That's the way I look at it, so.
Any other questions? So I guess, just give Nino some of the, I guess I don't know if my suggestions, I just want to make it, the code match what's going on today. Because I don't want, like I said, today you can't put all your trash out, but we do it. That's kind of what we do in the city. That's kind of the benefit of what we have, and I think we just need to make it clear that, sure, you can put your trash out, but make sure you put it out properly. That's the difference, I guess, because some people do just stack a big pile of stuff out there, and it's like not all put together, and
And it blows around.
it blows all
Understood.
around the neighborhood, and people get upset. I heard about that, and so I think that we need to probably make sure that gets taken care of, because the lids are very important too, so. So I don't know if we give you these changes, or we bring it back to council, or bring it back, or how do we do it? Because I'm sure Greg would want to double check it too, because I don't think we could just pass something in a legislative function that changes the legal format of the enforcement of it without him looking at it.
Correct. And if I may, I planned on talking to Mr. Huber, but he's not here today. But in fairness, he has not looked at the changes we've made, at least unless they looked at it through the packet on his own, but I have not sat with him, so we need to do that.
So Nino, does it make sense to bring it back with some of these recommended changes or any others that council sends to you individually back to finance? And then council 2 weeks later, so by the end of May, we would get this done? Or is it imperative enough that we would pass it tonight, subject to the law director approval, and then bring it to council with the changes that we hear about?
I think the first, We're not in a hurry. Like I said, we've been waiting quite a while. I was going to ask for the emergency clause. I was kidding. But no, the first, to bring it back to finance with the changes, and then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll go
Yeah,
to
Mr.
council.
Huber can look at it before it comes
Yes.
back and then make sure we're all good to go.
That's fair.
It sounds like it'd go through, the goal is just to make it match what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
That's all. Any other questions on that then? So if anybody has any comments, send them, email them to Nino, and he'll forward it on to Mr. Huber, add it in. I just had 3 or 4 today. Okay, all right,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else to come before finance, anybody?
If not, I will make a motion to go into executive session at 6:51 PM for 2 purposes: to consider the investigation and charges of complaints against a public employee, and 2, to discuss disputes involving the city that are subject to pending or imminent court action. And we will be including the mayor with us in executive session.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lamb,
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Hazelton.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
We'll be recessing to executive session to discuss the items mentioned by Mr. Shields. Coming out of executive session, taking no action on the items discussed in the executive session, adjourning from finance and moving on to council. We are in recess.